Geez, I always forget to turn on the mic there. So, all right, we are live. It's July the 10th, 2024. Good morning, Frederick. How you doing, man? Or Fred? Yeah, we got a couple things to hit today. I think last week we managed to get the Srcful guys, or Source. I think Frederick from Srcful on here. What's up, Keen? And that was cool to see a little bit or talk to him a little bit. I jumped in the Helium Discord later that day, and it was just that dude was getting hammered. People were pissed about that. So I think if I'm understanding it right, the general upsetness was about it being a surprise, right? Nobody likes change. And then the Srcful tokens, the deployment of Srcful nodes making the IoT network too dense and taking away rewards from the IoT network. So I think I understand both those issues there. But yeah, there it is. Is there someone that just comes in and gives me a thumbs down, like just so there's a thumbs down on there? Or is there something that I'm doing where you're like, fuck this guy, Gristleking? I'm not sure why that is, but I always notice there's at least one thumbs down like the first minute or so. And maybe it's just some savage one. So yeah, I think, in general, we want to see all of these different sub-DAOs come in and win. It's always going to, when you have the same size pie, just like in the original Helium, and you include more users, there's always going to be folks who get less, smaller slices. That's just the nature of the beast. But I think what we're aiming to do is grow the pie overall. And when I say we, I just mean the DePIN community. I don't think I hold currently a contract with the Helium Foundation. So I want to make sure that's super clear. What's up, Shane? 619, what's up, BFG? Long time no see. BFG, dude, come on back in the Discord, in the GK Discord. We miss you. We were just laughing the other day, like, fuck, don't do a BFG and just blow off. I'd love to see you back in there. Let's see, Shane, what's up? Do you mind to give us a quick rundown of how the Helium deployers can be a part of Srcful? I haven't paid that much attention to it, Shane, to be totally honest with you, so I'm not sure. I'm happy to sit down and kind of figure that out. I've got a couple other things I want to do today and this week, one of which is, so anyone.io is launched. They've done the migration. It was 𝐒𝐻𝐸𝐻, now it's anyone. And there's a way to run anyone, the VPN, and do that. It doesn't look for me right now particularly easy. There's not like a one button thing to run the hardware. Yeah, super straightforward. You plug it in. That part is very straightforward. But to use it as a VPN, I haven't seen an easy way to do that. So that's kind of my list of things to do before I get to the Srcful stuff. So, and anyone's a client, so paying customers come first. That's just that's how the ball bounces on that one. Although I would love to see if we can bring Srcful in. Not sure if they'll do that, but I've got to talk to them as well. Max and I did talk to a client that I'd be super pumped to bring on board, just because I think what they're doing is awesome and it's fun and it's kind of close to my heart, but more on that when we actually do it. Let's see. So we talked about the Srcful announcement. I saw in the DPU5, so there's a DePIN under 5 announcement channel in the GK Discord, and it just brings in the announcements from a bunch of other DePIN network so that you can just look at one thing instead of going through every single server. So I just kind of go through that at the top of this show. And DIMO had talked about this thing that is also high on my radar right now, or list of things I'm paying attention to, which is kind of AI. And really for me, it's kind of the more home, private, personal AI, but anything with AI is interesting. And they're doing this, they're calling it the cars plus Jarvis equals Carvis. So doing some AI stuff around what DIMO in general is doing. And I think DIMO's got some pretty exciting plans in the works coming down the pipe. So that'll be super cool to see what's going on there. Speaking of AI, you can see the machine. Oh, it's right there. I'd put a picture of it on Twitter, and some of you GPU mining experts had correctly noticed that the 3 GPUs are all plugged in basically right on top of each other. I don't think there's even an inch between them. I could measure it, but I'm pretty sure it's not. It's probably like 3/4 of an inch between them. And so the middle of those 3 GPUs is getting hot, which I noticed it's the first computer I ever built. So I kind of expected to make at least one what you could call egregious mistake. And if that counts as the egregious mistake, I'm pretty psyched on it. It just means that one runs pretty hot. As long as I'm not using it a ton, I don't think it's going to be a big problem. The most that I used it kind of consistently was when I ground that the Sol address. So there's a G-King Solana address out there. And I think that ran for 45 minutes. I don't think it got over like 54C. And if I'm getting it right, those things, you don't worry about those things until they run up in the 80s, I think. So I'm kind of debating. I don't think it's a great use of my resources right now, but I'm debating buying a new motherboard and chassis, like a mining rig chassis, so that I can spread those GPUs out. But I'm not sure if that's the best use of my time, and I don't think that I actually need that. That would just be like a cherry on top thing. So if any of you are mining GPU nerds and you're like, no, Nick, you should totally do that, otherwise you'll ruin that $800 card, I don't know, let me know. But it might just be that I ruin the card, and yeah, we'll see. 54 is not bad. No, I didn't think so either, Rock. And so I think if I'm running this thing all the time, then I'd start to be worried more. But this was what I wanted to learn with AI and with LLMs and with GPUs. Like, I didn't know anything about that stuff. Or water cooling. It's got 6 case fans on it right now. So 3 on the bottom, 3 on the top. And then, of course, each GPU has its own set of 3 fans of the 4070 Ti Supers. And then the CPU's got its own fan. So there's I don't know how many fans total it is. I'm guessing 9 plus 1 is 10, plus 6 is 16. Seems like a lot of fans in that case to keep it pretty cool. But that's what I wanted to learn. Like I said, I'd never built one before. It's like, hey, how do these things even go together? I mean, like stuff that if you've done it before, you're like, you just think it's obvious. But clicking in the GPU cards and making sure that it clicks in and then pulling them out when you make a mistake or you want to change something. I think one of the things I did was that motherboard has, and maybe all motherboards have this, I just don't know, has the ability to like plug in extra power for the GPUs directly, so the GPUs can plug into power as well as like their normal power thing. There's some PCIe slot thing. I don't know. There's still a lot that I don't know. So just like figuring all that stuff out and getting hands-on with it, like, oh, here's how you route cables. Here's how the whole thing goes together. Here's what the motherboard does. Here's what the CPU does. Here's what the GPUs do. Here's the SSD, like all these different things. I just didn't know any of that stuff. And so just in building it, that was pretty cool. I was talking, a buddy of mine is staying with Lee and I right now. She's a world-class water rescue operator. In fact, I think she's one of only 2 people who's been on a 100-foot wave on a jet ski. Like, she's a rad human. You should look her up. I think I've talked about her before. But we were talking this morning about YouTube being a free college education. And I think, I've learned a ton. There's this guy, Techno Tim, that just came out with like how to do your own home AI. He's come out with actually 2 videos in the past couple of weeks. And there's another dude, Network Chuck, that's come out with one. And I just think, man, for the price of that, which was pretty expensive, I think it was just under $8,000. That plus YouTube, I'm not going to say that I have taken a crash course in building these things, but it gives me the ability to say like, okay, instead of going to a bunch of college classes on their schedule and driving over there and doing that stuff, I can just sit here and for what I think is a pretty reasonable price, get a world-class education as far as I have the kind of energy and ability to go. And I don't think that understanding is a limit to that, in the sense that there are enough YouTube videos out there. There's enough information on the internet that if you just grind your head against it and bang your head against it, you can understand stuff. So that's been pretty cool. One neat thing I haven't talked about yet, I published that, I should have put the link to the blog post on Home AI or Private AI. One neat thing that I just started doing yesterday is, and I'm admittedly super late to the party on this DY-Cats thing. So DY-Cats.xyz is some NFT project, I think started by a bunch of Helium emojis, and they're just like mucking about with, coffee. They're mucking about with NFTs and Solana and how it all works. And so I think Max, my partner over at Goldhawks, had bought one. He's like, oh, I bought this one on 4th of July. And anytime Max buys anything, this is not financial advice, but I just like, oh, if Max is interested in it, he's got this like, what do the Germans call it? Like a 𝐒𝐩𝐨𝐬𝐸𝐻𝐻𝐸𝐻𝐻, like a fingertip feel for what's going on in DePIN, is I think it's generally a good idea for me when I hear that Max is buying it to go in and like buy one of them, as long as it's not like way out of budget. And so I was like, oh, Max bought one of these DY cats. I'll go buy one of these DY cats. And there's this whole auction when you buy them, right? And you would think an auction is pretty straightforward. And so I put in a bid on a DY cat, and I got outbid at the last minute. And due to operator error on my side, so this is not on the DY cat side, I didn't understand that I'd been outbid. I was like, oh yeah, I won this thing. And then it just closed and that was it. Right. Yeah. And so 609 sounds like a rug. Yeah. I would expect almost any DePIN project. I don't know if they'd be a rug, but don't expect them to succeed and like buy you a new house. I would go in there with like only putting in money that you're like, hey, if I lose this, it's not going to affect me being able to buy a single cup of coffee, right? Don't bet things that are important to you on DePIN stuff. 2 million mobile for an NFT. No thanks. Yeah. Yeah. So what I was doing with this was like, oh, I didn't understand the auction rules. So I jumped into their server and I was like, hey, are there any rules written up on the auction? And I think his Peroni's like, oh, you can see a couple things here. And I went through the documentation that they had, and it wasn't super clear to me like how the whole thing worked, like what counted as a snipe. Because I tried to snipe, which is just general, sound like a boomer here, general talk for like putting in a bid at the last minute, which I've done on eBay a bunch with a website called Auction Sniper, and it's been pretty good. I'd suggest looking up who runs DY cats. You might be surprised. Yeah, I'm sure I would be. Like, now that I'm looking for them, I'm seeing everyone's got these stupid DY cats BFBs. So I obviously don't know very much about it, but it's interesting. So what I started to do was I spent a couple hours yesterday trying to figure out what the Solana program looked like for the auction. And what I wanted to be able to do was to find the auction code and then read it so that I could understand the rules of the auction. And then I talked to the DIY cats guys and said like, hey, I'll trade you a cat for writing up the auction rules. Cause I had a bunch of questions, and it seems like they're going for that. If they don't, I don't think they've made any commitments to that. They just said, this is interesting. So, but it was just interesting for me. Like, I don't know, I've got it's not the right way to say it, but like it's always bugs me when I learn about something and I want to know more about it, and there's not an easy way to find out more. There's not great documentation. And that was what got me into Helium, kind of originally what made me like the Gristleking instead of just some dude named Nick, was writing kind of easy to understand general documentation on how the whole thing works. So I wanted to do that for the auction piece yesterday. So I spent some time yesterday it took me forever to find it, and I can't believe I didn't find it sooner, but obviously to you guys, there's a GitHub for DY cats, and the auction program is in that GitHub. And before I was doing that, I was trying to like bang through the contract address and using ChatGPT, and then I was like, oh, what I should do is I should take all of the Solana documentation in general, and then all of the DY cats specific documentation, and put it using a RAG into my private LLM, and then start asking it questions. And I was in a rush yesterday, so I just used ChatGPT 4.0, and that seemed to work okay, but it wasn't great. And it took me a while to kind of bang through it. And then finally I found the GitHub, and then used that to go through and say like, oh, here are the rules for it. And there's some pretty interesting, I wouldn't call them like, they're certainly not like exploitable misses in there, but there's some stuff in there that I found was like, oh, that's interesting. Like you could totally do these things that I'm sure the creators didn't intend to do. So, but that's a long way of saying, I think this is one of the kind of neat features of having a personal LLM that you can configure yourself, and gives you more flexibility than just ChatGPT or anything that is out there. Is you can start feeding it the specific documents you have using anything LLM or Llama or whatever your kind of flavor is that you want to experiment with. And I think anything LLM is probably the best bet there. And that was something that Vortal had introduced me to. It makes just the RAG stuff pretty easy, and it sets up a vector database. And I think vector database. The funny thing was, when I was reading about vector DBs, the guy who started anything LLM has a Reddit thread. And he was saying like, hey, most people don't know what vector DB is. I'm like, yeah, including me. I just know that it's somehow important to this whole stupid RAG thing and being able to load these documents in. So that was just like an exploration. And I think one of the things here, me not being a coder, is AI in general and having your own personal one in particular seems to give you the ability, seems to begin to unlock the door to allow anyone to interact with what were before highly technical things that were inaccessible unless you knew Rust or whatever, Python or JSON or whatever, like the million different things out there are. And that's a giant unlock for AI in general and these private and personal LLMs in particular. So pretty cool there. Let's see what else came down the pipe. I saw Dabba had a town hall, Wi-Fi Dabba. Those guys just keep on going. Wingbits. I had talked about this a little bit over the Wingbits server, but before I took off and I went to the UK for my sister's wedding a couple weeks ago. I think we missed in State of the Network because of that. I had set up I had upgraded one of my Wingbits locations. I've got two of them. I had upgraded one from all the green stuff that was like not the cheapest stuff out there, but it was just kind of what I would consider pretty bone stock stuff. And I got a nice antenna and an air spy, which turned out to be more complicated than I frankly wanted it to be. And then a cavity filter from this dude Lothar. And I don't know if I've talked about it a bunch since, but I think that the earnings have gone up. They were, oh geez, I'm going to get this wrong. They went up enough that I think it's worth it. And again, giant gamble on any of these DePIN projects. So, worth it might mean something very different to you than it does to me. It was worth it to me just to put it up and see like, oh yeah, better gear does improve the Wingbits points earnings. And that was interesting enough. And I'll see if I can muck around and find the actual things. I think it was maybe, I don't want to say it was double. So not 100% more, but maybe like 75% more earnings by upgrading to that stuff. But you never know what's going to happen with these things. Super interesting just to see how it works. And then I think the next step there on my long list of when am I going to ship it? 619. So I think we talked about this. I still got the setups here. I'll just leave them at the Paleotreats office. I'll bring them in today and I'll put a little box that says 619 on them and then come by and pick them up whenever you want. And then I got to ship the other one to dude in Palm Springs, I think I said. So, yeah, I think that's the way to do that. I think, yeah, I've got 3 setups, and of course my Gollum-like greed. As soon as I just see any hardware laying around, I was like, ooh, should I give these away? Should I go set them up at my mom's house, my dad's house? It's like, I'm not sure that I've got time for that. So I have thought a couple times about doing these big remote off-grids. That's all the changes at once. Yeah, all of them were at once. So I think over on the Wingbits thing, one of the guys, Grumpy Dad, had been like, dude, this doesn't even count as being useful because you change so many things. Like just the antenna change would have been enough to increase earnings. So you don't know that the air spy or the cavity filter did anything. And I was just like, I didn't want to do a bunch of like science stuff on that. I just wanted to upgrade the whole thing and then forget about it, which is what I did. So what do you mean token reduction? 619. I'm not sure what that refers to. And the chat on my side is like a minute or 2 behind. So when I see it, it's a minute or 2 after you posted it. So sorry. Let's see. The other thing I saw that Connor Lovely had done. Connor written up a piece for Coindesk and mentioned Helium. And so I think in general, we're seeing DePIN and Helium and kind of the projects that and by we, I'm just meaning us in the DePIN world are interested in general, getting more press, which is super cool. Is he grumpy? Is that you? I'm not sure if that's the same person. And I haven't seen him be particularly grumpy. It just, yeah, that's his name. So I thought it was funny. And I think, there's a bunch of different kind of personality types that interact with DePINs. And they're all important. Like some folks are kind of like, how do I get the most for the least? I'm more like, hey, what do I need to spend in order to have the best setup? That's within what I think is a reasonable budget, which is unreasonable for some people and ultra cheap for others. I think this thing is a great example. Like for me, this seems like the most to reasonably spend. I think it's like $7,800 or something. The link is out there on the thing. And I know for some folks, it's like, oh, that's ridiculous to spend that much. And then for other folks, you're like, yeah, but an A100 or an H100 costs 24,000, so you're cheaping out. So, oh yeah. So the Wingbits stuff, that's right, 619. They went from 100 billion to 10 billion. So your 300 wings turned into 30 wings. Yeah, I mean, on that stuff, remember when Helium James File was big on the reduction of HNT? They wanted to knock it over by a couple decimal points, and there's like a huge fuss about that. I just think like, well, if it's happening to everyone, it doesn't matter. Like it makes no difference. It's just where a decimal point is. And I think there was a bunch of discussion about 100 seems like more than one, but I don't know. To me, it's like, would you rather have 100 pennies or $1? I'd rather have $1. 100 pennies is a lot to carry around and keep track of, even though it's 100. So but that's just me. I'm more on the convenience side. I think that was it. That was most of what I had for today. I don't think we need to drag these things out unless you guys want to hit some specific things. I'm trying to think if there's anything else. Most of how many more hexes are you getting messages in now? Ooh, I don't know. Oh, how many more hexes am I getting them before? I don't know if you can see that. That's a great question. So we're talking about the Wingbits dashboard. Actually, it's just going to be me staring at a screen for a second, but let me see if I can pull this thing up. And then I'm pretty sure I could share the screen or at least see what's going on. I don't think there's a way to see like what the hexes you were getting before versus what you're getting now. So now over the last 7 days, I've got 1,700 wings. Oh, and then let's see. Let me look at the last 30 days. Oh, I guess, so before the most I was getting was, I'm going to put my glasses on. Sorry, guys. I don't know that it's that important that you guys don't see the names of these stupid things. So let me just share, make a couple changes, and then I'll share my screen so that we're all looking at the same thing. Bookmarks, view. Okay, so what happens if I do... Oh, sorry, I got to remember to figure out this thing here. All right, I gotta move this over here. No historical view. No, there isn't a historical view. Yeah, that would be super cool. Siegfried, what's going on, man? Dog, good to see you. I think if I change this to solo with pick, yeah, you guys will see what I'm seeing. Okay, so now you're seeing what I'm seeing. Cool. So this is the piece here. I'm not sure why this is not showing the things all pretty. So the green is the one that we had before, and let's go to the 30-day. So here's what it was getting before, and there's not like great historical pieces here. So let's see the most. Dang it. Undo that. There we go. So the highest it got before was 98 wings, and then the highest it's getting now is 168, but it's more, what's that, 132. The lowest is 91. This is 98. So you can see kind of this is the old setup and this is the new setup. Oh, maybe 75% more is an exaggeration. I'd love to be able to see more than just this, and I don't think you can see the new coverage versus the old coverage. In fact, I wonder if I turn this on. No, that's only for this graph. That has nothing to do with this thing here. So I don't know that you can see that there's way more coverage than there was before. But yeah, hopefully that's helpful. Your name is like your 12 words. Well, I guess you guys get all my monkey wing bits. Sutton Solo. Let's go back to that. Yeah, there we go. So that's it. Yeah, I guess let's see. Is the name like the 12 words? Hopefully I didn't lose all of my 8,000 wings. And if I did, then I don't know. I'm guessing there's someone on here who will show me the foolishness of my ways. I can't imagine what you do. I guess what you could do is you could set up another station with my name, and then somehow that would like take over for it. Right? I'd have to check things out. So, no. Oh, that doesn't work that way. Yeah, I'm not that sure how that whole thing works. So we'll see. I mean, you guys can, I don't know if you want to try it, you could. I think I had another, I had another station that was up in Idaho that a buddy of mine was hosting, and then he moved and shut it down, and that thing is gone. So yeah. And I'm pretty sure on Wingbits, you should be able to see another name. The name is randomly generated, right? But I don't think just by seeing like the name of mine, you could do anything. So if I go to map on this thing, it's just showing the map of the planes in general. Jeez, there's a lot of planes. Yeah, doxed. I don't think you can even dox yourself. No. No, I mean, if anyone wants to see one of these things, I'm happy to show you. Although I probably shouldn't say that because it means you'd have to be climbing up on a roof, and there is one fairly hazardous move to get up on that roof that I think if you're an agile person is not hazardous at all. But there's certainly like a, I think the risk of falling is low, but the consequences of falling are high, which is a funny thing. I've got a buddy of mine. I don't think I'll ever get him on the podcast. I did a podcast with him a long time ago. I don't think he told this story on it. This is when I had a totally different podcast. You can look up my name and podcast if you want to see it. It's Chris the Problem Solver. His name is from forever ago. But there's another story about him is that he was climbing as a climber. He spent some time in Yosemite, and he click the planes off and the towers on. Maybe I'll see if I can do that. Oh, I'm telling this story. Planes off, towers on. Yeah, there it is. And then can you click and see what the name of a tower is? No, I don't think so. So he's climbing Yosemite with a buddy who had just met him, and they're going up, whatever it was, some big wall. And they go up this wall together, and they get to the very top, and they're traversing, going along the wall to get to another place. And this traverse, you're just edging along this really narrow path. And I think, so when you climb, you tie into a rope, and typically that rope goes through an anchor, something that's bolted onto the wall, and then it goes to your buddy, and your buddy will belay you. So as you go up, they'll feed out rope, and if you fall, wherever that anchor is, you can fall the length of the rope between you and the anchor, and then you'll get caught by the rope. So in general, it's pretty safe as long as you do everything safely. What will happen with good climbers and climbers who are kind of risk tolerant is they will, what is it called? Simulclimbing, where they'll both be climbing at the same time. There'll be some protection, so some anchors between them. But as the guy in the front climbs up and the guy in the back climbs up behind him, the guy in the back will be pulling the protection out of the rock as they go. So it's a faster way to climb that's reasonably safe, but it's not super safe. You only do it with guys who are good. So this guy, Chris, and his buddy get to the top of this one climb, and they're traversing on this really narrow path. So they're still roped together. And Chris goes across the traverse first, no anchor. So if Chris had fallen, he would have taken the other guy with him, and vice versa. And then the other guy crosses as well and gets to the far side and says, "Man, Chris, did I miss something? Like that seemed like a pretty dicey thing to do." And Chris goes, he's like, "There's something I should tell you. I'm not the safest climber you'll climb with." So I would say that the same thing for if you're hanging out with me and doing physical stuff. I am not the safest person to be around and follow my lead, because I have a reasonable, although not an unreasonable, like nowhere close to unreasonable risk tolerance. But I guess that depends on who you are. So I always thought it was a funny story. There's another dude I want to get on that same podcast. I've been tracking him down forever, and he has got one of the coolest stories I've ever heard. But he's super, super private. So and he's also all over the place. So it's getting him on there to tell a story is pretty difficult, but if I can get it, I will announce it over here. Okay. That's enough about the rest of my life. I guess if my Wingbits thing gets hacked or I get doxxed, I'll find out about it sometime today when all my Wingbits points disappear. If you guys know of a way to find the tower names outside of that, great. But I think I've seen in the Wingbits Discord, people have said my name is whatever, Monkey 712 or whatever it is. So I don't think that's that dangerous. So, okay. I think that's all the DePIN news that I've got for today. I will see you guys next week. Hit me up on Discord if you need any help with anything. And yeah, rock and roll. Let's go see what happens with the 𝐒𝐩𝐨𝐬𝐡𝐢𝐩 auction today. It's a lot of mobile on the line there.